Did you know that by January 2026, millions of Californians could lose full control over their own property without even realizing it? That's not a theory. It's already written into law. From hidden clauses buried in housing bills to new government powers that let cities override your property rights. California is quietly rolling out laws that could change what it means to own property forever. We're talking about laws that let the public access parts of your private land, allow the government to seize homes for affordable housing, and even force you to pay thousands just for leaving your home empty. Most people haven't heard a word about these laws, and that's exactly the problem. In this video, we'll break down 10 shocking laws taking effect in 2026 that every homeowner, landlord, and renter needs to know before it's too late. Stay with me, because what you don't know can cost you everything. Law 10. The end of single-family zoning, what it really means for you. For decades, single-family zoning protected neighborhoods across California, ensuring that only one home could be built per lot. But starting in January 2026, that rule is no longer the default. Thanks to the continued rollout of Senate Bills 9 and 10, cities and counties are being pressured, some say forced, to allow multifamily construction on what were once single-family lots. That means your quiet cul-de-sac? It could soon have a fourplex or even a small apartment complex right next door. This isn't just about building more homes. It's a dramatic shift in how land is used, how communities are shaped, and how much control you really have as a property owner. Even if your local city council doesn't want this, the state can override them. What does this mean for you? Imagine waking up to construction noise, parking battles, and property values fluctuating, all because the lot next to you was legally split in half and turned into multiple rental units. And if you're a homeowner thinking about selling, you might actually be pressured to sell to developers rather than families. Supporters say this law will ease the housing crisis. Critics say it's a backdoor attack on property rights. Either way, it's happening. So ask yourself, is your neighborhood next? In a moment, we'll talk about even more invasive laws, including one that could let strangers legally walk across part of your land. But first, let's look at Law 9, because if you rent out even a single room, you could soon be on a government watch list. Law 9, the Landlord Registry. Are you about to be tracked? If you own property in California and rent it out, even just one unit or a single spare room, you could soon be added to a statewide government database. Starting in January 2026, a new law requires all rental property owners to register their units with a mandatory landlord registry. This includes addresses, number of units, rental prices, tenant information, and more. Fail to register? You could face fines, penalties, or even legal action. Supporters claim this law increases transparency and helps track housing availability. But critics warn it opens the door to government overreach, data privacy issues, and targeted enforcement. Imagine this. You're a small landlord, renting out a guest house to help cover your mortgage. Suddenly, you're hit with paperwork, inspections, and unexpected taxes, all because your name is now on a public list. And yes, some cities plan to make this registry publicly searchable. This could mean increased scrutiny from local housing boards, potential exposure to lawsuits from tenants or advocacy groups, and new regulations aimed at landlords on that list. If you think this only affects big real estate companies, think again. This law applies to mom-and-pop landlords, retirees renting out a duplex, and even homeowners using Airbnb or short-term rentals. And here's the kicker. Once you're on the registry, you stay there, even if you sell your property. So the real question is this about protecting tenants or controlling landlords? In the next section, we'll cover Law 8, which might just take away your power to choose who stays in your property, and for how long. What's coming next may feel like you losing the ability to manage your own home. We put a ton of time and research into making videos like this, so if you found it valuable, hit that subscribe button. Yep, just one click. Law 8. Automatic lease renewals. Can you still say no to a tenant? Starting in January 2026, California is rolling out a law that could make it much harder for landlords to end a lease, even after it expires. The law introduces automatic lease renewal rights for many tenants, especially those who've lived in a unit for over 12 months. This means that unless a landlord has a just cause reason, like non-payment or criminal activity, they may be legally required to let the tenant stay. Let that sink in. Even after a lease ends, you might not have the right to ask someone to leave. This is especially concerning for small landlords and homeowners who rely on flexibility, like renting out an in-law unit or a guest house. You could be stuck with a tenant far longer than you planned, just because you didn't follow the new, complex legal process for non-renewal. Even worse, if you make a mistake, like missing a deadline or using the wrong form, you could face penalties or be forced to let the tenant stay indefinitely. Supporters say this law protects renters from sudden evictions and housing insecurity. But many landlords see it as a loss of control over their own property. Here's a practical tip. If you rent out a property, start reviewing your lease agreements now. Make sure they're updated to reflect new legal language and get familiar with what qualifies as just cause under the new rules. Because if you're not prepared, you could end up with a tenant who stays for years, and there may be nothing you can do about it. Next up. Law number 7. You've heard of going green. But what if California forces you to spend tens of thousands of dollars to upgrade your home, even if you don't want to? Law number 7. Mandatory climate upgrades. Can the state force you to go green? Starting January 2026, California homeowners could be facing a massive new expense, even if you're not planning to sell or renovate. The state's latest climate-focused legislation will require certain energy upgrades to homes, including solar panels, electric heat pumps, EV charging stations, and energy-efficient appliances. And guess what? These won't be suggestions. They'll be mandatory in many situations. Selling your home? You may not be allowed to close escrow until you've made the upgrades. Doing a major remodel? The building permit might not be approved unless you commit to these improvements. Own an older property? You could receive a compliance notice requiring updates within a few years. While the goal is to reduce carbon emissions and move toward clean energy, the financial burden falls squarely on homeowners. These upgrades can cost $20,000 to $50,000 or more, depending on your property's age and condition. Supporters say this is necessary to meet California's aggressive climate goals. But critics argue it's an unfunded mandate that punishes middle-class families and seniors on fixed incomes. And there's more. In some counties, non-compliance penalties are already being drafted, meaning you could face fines or liens if you don't upgrade in time. If you own property in California, now's the time to audit your home's energy systems, start budgeting for potential upgrades, and understand what will trigger a mandatory retrofit. Because whether you agree with the climate agenda or not, the law is clear. Your home must comply or you'll pay the price. Next, we'll talk about something even more alarming, Law Bar 6, where the government could legally take your property. And there might be nothing you can do to stop it. Law Bar 6. Eminent domain for affordable housing. Can the state take your home? Imagine getting a letter from the city saying your home is being taken, not because you broke the law, but because the government wants to build affordable housing. Sounds extreme, right? But under newly expanded eminent domain powers, this could soon become a reality for more Californians. Starting in January 2026, local governments will have greater authority to seize private property, including homes, lots, and even small businesses, if the land is deemed underutilized or suitable for affordable housing development. The legal term is public benefit, and affordable housing now officially qualifies under that definition. In plain terms, if the city thinks your property would be better used as a multifamily complex, they can force you to sell it. And while they'll offer fair market value, you have no choice in the matter. This law is aimed at speeding up housing construction, but it also raises serious concerns about property rights, fairness, and abuse of power. Who decides what's underutilized? What if your empty lot is being saved for your children? Or your small rental property is your retirement plan? The answer may not matter. You could be forced to give it up. And once the land is gone, you don't get it back. Real estate investors, homeowners, and even family farmers need to take this seriously. The best defense? Stay informed on local development plans, attend city council meetings, and know your legal rights ahead of time. Because if the state or city targets your land, you might only have weeks to respond. And once it's in motion, it's nearly impossible to stop. Coming up next, Law No. 5, where even renting out your property for extra income could become completely illegal overnight.